everyone, it's Nicole from the Physio Crew doing an Ask Nicole question this morning. To the chap who was worried about my posture last time, this is the best place for the camera to go, so I apologise if my posture is a bit stooped forward. It's to make it so that you can see me and hear me really clearly. So this person, thank you very much for popping this question in about your elbow. So we treat lots and lots of boxes. Sometimes the common kind of injuries in boxes are things like shoulder dislocations, rotator cuff tears, so tears of the muscle, problems around the elbow and the hand. You can often get fractures of the wrist or the hand, and so it's really, really important that you're doing lots of conditioning work, lots of training to build up the muscle strength around those areas. Often we see injuries in people who are either just increasing their training because they've got a fight coming up, or perhaps they haven't had as much coaching with the technique. So go to a local club, get lots and lots of advice on your technique, and then make sure you're building up nice and gently. Specifically for this question with the elbow, lots and lots of people can injure their elbow depending on the force depends on which area will be injured. So if you think about a jab, it depends on the position of your elbow at the time that you felt pain. So did you notice the kind of things that we'd ask in a physio clinic is, was there any specific time that you felt it? So someone asked, would they get pain from overextending the elbow with a jab? Well, that depends. Was the person, when the arm stopped, did you find that the arm was forced backwards? So for example, if there was a force on your hand because you didn't have your technique quite right and your elbow wasn't kind of following through behind your hand, then that's going to increase the pressure on the ligaments and the tissues at the front of the elbow. So your bicep attaches down in here, and you also have attachments of the tricep. So depending on where the force was taken on the arm, that would indicate whether you may have a small avulsion fracture. An avulsion fracture is where the ligament or the tendon is very, very strong compared to the bone. So actually a tiny bit of the bone is pulled off. So it's not a normal fracture that you may see if you fell over and you broke your arm, but you can still pull a tiny bit of the bone off. With those type of injuries, often they will put you into some kind of support or splint to try and help so that the attachment point of the bone, if the tendon, for example, has pulled a tiny bit of the bone off, perhaps on the tricep, then what they will do is they will stabilise so that they are nice and neatly together, and then you'll normally get a certain amount of healing at that point. If the two bits are too far apart, then they don't have the potential then to heal and form a nice neat scar. So in physio, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ruling out, is there a fracture? Sorry, I was talking about setting up the camera and then it's starting to twist around. So we're looking at ruling out if there's a fracture. So is there any crepitus? Was there a sudden onset of pain? Is there massive bruising and swelling? Is there any visual deformity at all? So do the bones look like they're in a normal place? And unfortunately, elbow fractures, especially not so much in boxing actually, but particularly in rugby, you get a lot of elbow fractures, particularly if the arm is forced and there's another player that's coming on that will just unfortunately put a little bit too much pressure. We always say though that it's actually probably easier if you have a fracture. It's normally easier to cope with than if you have ligaments and tendon issues. So sometimes a fracture is quicker to heal depending on its complexity. One of the things that you really want to be aware of as well is in that area you want to move the elbow if we've ruled out a fracture. So if we know that there's no fracture there and we're thinking that this may be ligament or tendon issue, depending on the tissue healing times, we're then going to get you moving the joint. We don't want the joint to get stiff. There is a condition in the elbow that is quite prevalent, that if you are too aggressive with mobilizations, you can get a condition where there's little bones, bony formation develops within the muscle, which is bad news. We don't want that. It's called heterotrophic ossification, and what we don't want to do is be moving it too aggressively. So that's why it's really important to understand what is actually going on, at what stage is it healed enough that we can start moving it. We don't want an elbow to get stiff or sore because that's going to prolong your recovery as well. So in answer to this person's question, the long-winded way is yes, it is possible to injure the elbow through hyperextension, so that's pushing the elbow back past its normal range. With a jab, because with a jab you're going to have an increased load going through. If you think about the load of your arm just being still and having an external force, but you're actually driving that power through your arm, so there is going to be an extra load on there. And the things you want to be thinking about is how long have you had it. So if you had it a couple of days, as long as you don't think it's a fracture, then you might just want to wait and see if it settles down. If you're worried that it might be a fracture, then of course book in and we can rule that out. And sometimes we are just a really good stop before you go to somewhere like A&E. If you think it's definitely a fracture, you should just go straight to A&E if it's something very complex. But if you're not sure, if you don't want to waste kind of 4 to 6 hours in A&E, you can always come in and we can see you, and then we can let you know whether you need to go or not. We'll be able to identify that as a sports injury clinic. So anyway, hope that's been helpful for you. I'm going to try and get another 3 done before my first patient. Hope you had a lovely Christmas and getting ready for New Year's celebrations. Bye.